crisis, that America had become too expensive. Well, isn't it interesting? Despite the fact that polls continue to show, by an overwhelming majority, that is the biggest issue that voters care about, we have in front of us the Republican Reconciliation 3.0, 47 pages, 6,560 words, not one word about affordability, not one word about how to bring down costs for the American people. Folks, they're not even trying. We have a president who just doesn't care about the average American family and the affordability crisis. Don't take my word for it. Take the president's own words. Quote, "I don't think about Americans' financial situation." And this bill reflects that fact. We have in this bill almost $100 billion in new deficit spending. Yes, that's right, the same crowd that loves to cry crocodile tears about deficit and debt whenever there's a president in the White House who's a Democrat. Cumulatively now, they have added $5 trillion to our national debt, more than any other 18-month period in the history of Congress. And they're about to add $100 billion more. Most of that spending is for President Trump's Iran war, a reckless decision with absolutely no plan on how to achieve victory and how it would end. The American people have paid the price for President Trump's war. In terms of dollars and cents, just look at gas prices. The day before the war was launched, the national average for a gallon of gas was $2.98. Today, it is over $4 a gallon and climbing. And here we have another reconciliation bill in front of us. Nothing in there whatsoever to bring down costs, nothing to lower gas prices, nothing to lower food prices, nothing to lower the cost of consumer goods. Just more spending on the most unpopular war in American history. That might sound like an exaggeration, a Trumpian exaggeration. No, it's a fact. Going back to the beginning of polling almost a century ago, there is no other war in American history in which the American people, by a more than 2-to-1 margin, disapprove over approve. Only 30% of the American people approve of what the president is doing in Iran. It's no wonder. They are paying the cost. And of course, as expensive as it is for the American family, that doesn't measure up to the ultimate cost, those lives that we have lost already in this war. So, Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear from the president's own words and the written text of this bill, this president and the Republican majority has no plan whatsoever on how to bring costs down for the American people. What's worse, they're not even trying. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I give 2 minutes to my friend from Alabama, the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee here in the House, Mr. Mike Rogers.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of this budget resolution. This resolution unlocks $60 billion in critically needed supplemental funding to support the warfighter and ensure our military readiness. Without these funds, military training exercises will be canceled. Maintenance of equipment, facilities, and weapon systems will be deferred. Munitions procurement will be postponed, and the combat readiness of our armed forces will suffer. This budget resolution will enable us to move legislation to provide $1.6 billion to ensure our service members are paid on time, $17 billion to cover unplanned operational costs such as fuel, training, and maintenance repairs, $18 billion to replenish the arsenal of critical munitions. And yesterday, you may have noticed Secretary Hegseth testified before the Senate that without these funds, we face critical shortfalls that threaten the department's ability to pay our service members, rapidly replenish equipment and munitions, and sustain vital operations without disruption. No matter how you feel about the current events, these funds are necessary to ensure our fighting forces remain ready, our troops are paid, and our nation is safe. I urge all members to support the resolution, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Gentleman from Texas reserves.
Mr. Speaker, as you heard from our chairman, while our Democrat colleagues are shutting down the Department of Homeland Security and blocking the National Defense Authorization Act in the Senate, we've got our troops standing in the gap, risking their lives for the common defense. They need to be refueled, they need the replenishment, and they need the resources to be successful. And they need to know we're behind them. And with that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Doggett.
The gentleman is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
This bill should really be known as the Desperation Act, because Republicans are so desperate to fund an endless war, so desperate to avoid angering their master at the White House, so desperate to find a way to exclude from the upcoming election many of the very voters that are about to vote them out of office. Obedient Republicans here today are doing nothing to address sky-high prices that are caused by erratic Trump tariff taxes and unnecessary conflicts. American families paying about $1,100 each in increased costs as a result of Trump's Operation Epic Folly. Service members continuing to pay with their lives. Now Trump demands that we pay again for his billions of dollars wasted in a quagmire he hasn't the slightest idea how to get out of. Watching Trump blunder along in such a chaotic, irrational manner has caused many Americans to ask, is he past his prime or is he really sick? Yet instead of providing an inquiry or a check on his condition, they hand him another huge check today for doing whatever he pleases. To shield themselves from accountability, they also add in this bill not really voter identification, but voter exclusion. They have it all backwards. We should restrain the would-be tyrant, not restrain the voters. This misnamed bill is not about saving America. It represents Republicans' last-ditch effort, grasping for a life preserver before they sink. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from the Keystone State, our chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Mr. G.T. Thompson.
Chairman,
thank you so
for 2
much. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of the budget resolution. This resolution includes $12 billion for agriculture producers. As chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture, I know exactly how vital the health of farm country is to our rural communities and our national food security. The provisions in last summer's Working Families Tax Cuts provided a much-needed long-term solution by bolstering the farm safety net. But until those provisions are fully implemented, we will need to help those who feed and clothe us with short-term assistance. Additionally, producers across the country have fallen to the whims of the weather and will need assistance until they can get back on their feet. Just as one example, especially crop producers in my home state of Pennsylvania are experiencing never-before-seen losses due to a late-season freeze that wiped out almost the entire fruit crops. These sustained losses have plagued producers across the country. American producers are currently staring down the barrel of $80 billion in uncovered farm losses since 2023. That's even with the commodity program payments and the bridge assistance program that President Trump initiated last fall. In total, American producers have seen $119 billion in farm loss since 2023. Additional aid is needed to bring our farm economy back to an equilibrium until the updates from the Working Families Tax Cuts kick in. Policies put forth in the Farm Food and National Security Act of 2026, which the House of Representatives passed in April, will also restore certainty to the farm economy, but our producers need relief now. President Trump answered the call with his recent supplemental request, and I look forward to working with my committee members in conference to hear their priorities as we move through the budget reconciliation process. Now, I appreciate Chairman Arrington's for the hearing the needs of the farmers, ranchers, foresters in rural America, actually hearing the needs of our great country. When it comes to the agriculture space, if you vote against this bill, you're really voting for food insecurity, which leads to national insecurity. Mr. Speaker, thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Chairman, you heard Chairman of the Ag Committee. He's talking about emergency support for our farmers and ranchers who, by no fault of their own, are being pummeled by drought, natural disasters of all kinds, diseases like the screwworm. This will affect the food supply. We don't want to depend on China or any country. We don't want to beg any foreign country to feed our families. I thank him for his leadership. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman reserves. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chair, it is now my great honor to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, the distinguished Democratic leader of the House, Mr. Jeffries.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to thank the distinguished top Democrat on the House Budget Committee, Representative Brendan Boyle, for yielding and for his incredible leadership. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this America Last Republican budget that will provide billions of additional dollars to Operation Epic Fury in the Middle East, which has been a complete and total disaster for the American people. Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice in Iran has skyrocketed gas prices on everyday Americans who are already suffering from the failed Republican economy and drowning in its poor management. Now, Donald Trump has made several promises to the American people upon his return to the White House, all of which, it appears to me, he's failed to keep. Donald Trump promised to lower the high cost of living on day one, but costs in America haven't gone down, costs have gone up, in part as a result of the reckless Trump tariffs that have increased costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars per year. Donald Trump promised to love and cherish Medicaid, but instead turned around and, as a result of the Republicans' one big ugly bill, cut Medicaid by $1 trillion, costing more than 14 million Americans access to health insurance and causing hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers, particularly in rural America, to close. Donald Trump promised the American people that ICE enforcement would be focused on the worst of the worst and would only target violent felons. That's not what has happened. Donald Trump and his violent mass deportation machine are spending billions of dollars for ICE to brutalize and kill American citizens or to violently target law-abiding immigrants, as we just saw in Maine and in Houston. Donald Trump, of course, promised that he was elected not to start endless wars in the Middle East, but to stop them. And then turned around and has gotten us involved in a potentially endless war in Iran, a reckless war of choice that has made life more expensive for the American people while making us less safe, with Iran being stronger now, having a stranglehold over the Strait of Hormuz, a stronger Iran now than they were before Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice. So I stand in strong opposition to this America Last reckless Republican budget, this effort to waste tens of billions of dollars more on Operation Epic Failure in the Middle East. Mr. Speaker, we express our heartfelt condolences to the additional family members of those soldiers and members of the armed forces who have lost their lives needlessly in the Middle East. And we all have a responsibility to continue to stand with them in their time of mourning, in their time of great need, but simultaneously to make sure that no additional heroic, patriotic, brave American servicemen or women need to die overseas in Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice. So we stand in strong opposition to this America Last budget. One of the most important things as members of Congress who are solemnly given by the framers of the Constitution the responsibility to determine issues of war and peace. One of the most important things that we can do is stand against this reckless war of choice in the Middle East, so no more service members have to be sent home dead to their families who have been left behind. What we should be doing in this Congress is actually using our taxpayer dollars to make life more affordable for the American people. And that's our commitment as House Democrats. Unfortunately, Donald Trump and our Republican colleagues don't share that commitment. That's not a hypothetical. It's not hype. It's not hyperbole. Look at their own words. Donald Trump, of course, who has said, because we're fighting wars, we can't prioritize things like daycare, Medicaid, or Medicare. That's exactly what's happening right now. Republicans, in their one big, ugly bill, enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripping health care away from more than 14 million Americans all across the country, in rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, black and brown America. No one has been untouched by the Republican assault on health care. And why is this happening? So that Donald Trump can fund this reckless and costly war of choice in the Middle East. And the reality is, his own words, he doesn't give a damn about the economic well-being of the American people. How do we know that? Donald Trump, in his own words, said the affordability crisis is a hoax. Donald Trump, in his own words, said, I don't think about the personal financial situation of the American people. Donald Trump, in his own words, said, I love the inflation. And so we don't have to wonder why things aren't going well for everyday Americans in the United States right now. It's because, in my humble opinion, President Trump and Republicans in this House continue to act indifferent to the economic well-being of the American people and to actively do things that are hurting everyday Americans financially, like this reckless and costly war of choice, which is why we stand aggressively against it. On issue after issue, throughout this Congress, Republicans have adopted extreme policies to make life worse for everyday Americans, to actively hurt the American people. The Trump tariffs, actively hurting the American people, raising costs, including on farm country, by thousands of dollars per year. The refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, raising health insurance premiums on everyday Americans, more than 20 million people across this country, some by as much as $1,000 in additional expense per month. People are suffocating, drowning in this Trump economy. Donald Trump and Republicans in the one big ugly bill enacted the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history, a $186 billion cut, at the same time that they're funding this reckless and costly war of choice. Republicans have literally ripped food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans to sustain the Trump war machine. Republican extremists apparently have money for wars, but can't feed the poor. But our message to the American people is don't lose faith. Help is on the way. Regime change is coming to the House of Representatives in November, so keep your head up. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Arkansas, my friend, and the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Mr. Rick Crawford.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the distinguished chairman of the Budget Committee for his hard work, as always, and I rise in support of the budget resolution. First off, I want to thank Chairman Arrington and the members of the Budget Committee for producing this budget. Republican members of Congress working closely with President Trump are the only ones serious in Washington about attacking wasteful federal spending. As chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I'm fighting to identify waste, fraud, and abuse in the classified budget. HPSI Republicans are working to force the intelligence community to achieve clean financial audits, and we're working to create a culture of accountability. In my opinion, there can be no doubt that this administration is also serious about going after waste, fraud, and abuse. The screaming from the other side of the aisle is proof that this is the case. The flak is always heaviest when you're directly over the target. Democrats oppose this budget, and they oppose every action of this House because they want unelected Washington officials to be in charge until President Trump's term expires. Obstruction is their priority because their pork barrel spending has been exposed and their slush funds are being drained. To fight their obstruction, we need a budget resolution. We need to stand united as a Republican conference so that we can have a functioning government. We need to empower the running of the executive by the President of the American people elected. The resolution doesn't include everything each of us might ask, but it is necessary to keep us moving forward, and I urge all members to support the resolution. Mr. Speaker, before I yield back my time, I ask unanimous consent to include in the record the Budget Views and Estimates letter of the House Intelligence Committee.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to Mr. Chairman of the distinguished Budget Committee, and appreciate all your support, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Chair, I now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from the Commonwealth of Virginia, the distinguished ranking member of the Education and Workforce Committee, also a member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Scott.
Gentleman is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, prices are already too high for groceries, housing, health care, child care, and other everyday expenses. But instead of focusing on lowering costs for working families, the Trump administration and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are presenting this resolution, which will continue policies which have actually made things worse. With the passage of their big ugly bill, they cut health care, food assistance, and education funding, all the while adding $4.7 trillion to the national debt, and now they want to add another $95 billion to the debt to continue waging an endless war. We have a choice. We can invest in working families and ensure that people have access to food, Medicare, Medicaid, daycare, and education, but my colleagues are instead choosing an endless war. That's the wrong choice. Mr. Speaker, we should therefore oppose this resolution, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Well, let's not believe the hype, Mr. Chairman. Let's look at the stats from the nonpartisan CBO. The deficit per GDP has gone down by over 10% for the first time. I got it. I got it. I'm ready to roll. Because this continues to be this perpetual talking point. Like, in 10 years, we hadn't seen the deficit to GDP go down. Republicans came to this town and we drained the swamp of waste, fraud, and abuse to the tune of $1.6 trillion. That's twice as much as this town has ever cut in the history of the United States of America. It was Republicans that put forward the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and according to the nonpartisan CBO, saved $2 trillion. And then we put pro-growth policies in that big, beautiful bill and unleashed American investment, which is up 10%, growth, which is up. We had a 3.8, 4.3 in third and fourth quarter, or second and third before the Democrats shut the government down. Wages are up, inflation and interest coming down, and more money in people's pockets. I'd say promises made, promises delivered. I reserve. Oh, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I want to introduce to you the great chairman of the House Administration Committee, and my friend, Mr. Stein. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to him.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my friend, the gentleman from Texas, the chair of the Budget Committee, Mr. Arrington, for his hard work in this regard. Mr. Speaker, we're here today because we can advance common sense election integrity. House Republicans have pushed 2 key common sense reforms that are not yet across the line. First, you should be a citizen to vote in this country. And you have to prove that when you register. Second, when you head to the polls to cast your ballot, you should have to verify your identity with a photo ID. Mr. Speaker, now is the time for election integrity. It was just revealed in New Jersey that 6,600 non-citizens were admitted and registered to vote. According to the New York Times, nearly 400 of those non-citizens cast a ballot. Federal law requires states to give voter registration materials to everyone when they get a driver's license. It's a problem. During the Biden administration, millions of illegal aliens poured into our country. And in many blue states, of course, they can get a driver's license. What's to stop them from registering to vote? Currently, it's by checking a box that you're not a citizen. It's not enough. Stories like what happened in New Jersey undermine confidence in our elections. It's time we take action. Our common sense proposals will boost voter confidence, increase voter participation, ensure that it remains easy to vote but hard to cheat. We have a real opportunity before us to strengthen election integrity in all 50 states. I urge passage of this resolution, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields.
I think the chairman, interestingly enough, Chuck Schumer, Democrat leader in the Senate, agrees. In 2018, he was talking about Russia interference. Turned out to be a conspiracy and debunked, but he said they've actively trying to do it again. Russia's trying to do it again. We must wake up to this fact. These are his words. We won't be able as a nation to fight back against foreign interference in our elections if the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump at the time, doesn't even acknowledge that it's a real problem. I think this president has acknowledged it's a real problem. I think the American people have acknowledged it's a real problem, and I thank the gentleman for his leadership to restore confidence and integrity to the United States electoral system, and with that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's interesting. We've been having this debate for a little while now. I haven't heard one word from the other side about how their bill is going to lower costs for the American people. They haven't said one word, which is very consistent with the bill that they're pushing, because their bill also doesn't say one word or have one idea or one plan on how we can bring down costs for the American people. With that, Mr. Chair, it is now my honor to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Panetta.
Gentleman's recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, the President made some simple promises to get elected. Release the Epstein files, end forever wars, and reduce cost. Instead, as we've seen, the administration has done the exact opposite, which has led to corruption, to incompetence, and to increased cost, all demonstrating that this president does not care. Yet rather than push back and prioritize the American people, it appears the majority does not care. as it has put forward a budget resolution that spends more and borrows more just to please the president and promote his pet projects. This third budget resolution allows for another $95 billion to support the president's war in Iran, to paper over damaging trade policies, and to pass legislation that would deter legally eligible voters. I remind my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that the purpose of the budget reconciliation process is supposed to be deficit reduction. Instead, this legislation expands long-term deficits and even violates legal requirements. Now, I get that for over the past decade, Congress has abandoned any sense of normal budgeting process and rejected any talk of serious deficit reduction, but this budget could have been an opportunity for this Congress to advance policies that reduce our debt and actually make life more affordable. Instead, the president once again pushed the Republican majority to put forward a purely partisan bill that does nothing to lower costs, nothing to strengthen our economy, and in no way exercises fiscal responsibility. That is why I'm against this reconciliation legislation, not only that it shows that the president doesn't care about Americans, but it also shows that the majority doesn't care about our growing debt and deficit, and that Congress's responsibility is to the future of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, here's the irony. My Democrat colleagues, every single one of them, voted for $200 billion for Ukraine, for their war that would have been prevented, quite frankly, if we had a strong, competent commander-in-chief at the time. We didn't. It started, and they've sent $200 billion without batting an eye and without giving a penny to offset it. Now they want to talk about offsets, when we want to give our troops the money they need to finish the job, be safe, come home. We're proud of them. We stand with them. We're going to support them. And with that, I yield a minute to my friend and fellow Budget Committee member from Georgia, Mr. Buddy Carter.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of the Save and Protect America Act because it's about security and it's about getting back to common sense. The American people are tired. They're tired of Washington playing political games. They want to secure elections. They want us to finish the job in Iran, and they want to know that the government is standing with the farmers, with the ranchers, the producers who put food on our tables every single day. This bill does exactly that. It strengthens confidence in our elections with common sense voter ID protections, gives our troops the tools they need to defend this country, and provides certainty for our agriculture community because food security is national security. People back home in Georgia understand that freedom isn't free. They understand that elections should be secure and that our farmers deserve policies that help them succeed. This is about putting America first, doing what the American people sent us up here to do and delivering real results instead of democratic political theater. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the Save and Protect America Act, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chair, I now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Texas, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Escobar.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to this bill. Every day, Americans are being confronted with skyrocketing prices at the gas pump and at the grocery store. And this bill does absolutely nothing to address the economic crisis created by Donald Trump's economic policies, including his tariffs and an illegal war. Instead, Republicans in Congress are dumping nearly $100 billion into the budget to fund this illegal war. $100 billion. That could pay the salaries of 1 million elementary school teachers. It could pay for medical care for 7 million veterans. It's enough to fund nearly 10 years of school lunches for every child and so much more. Budgets are representative of our values and our priorities. And it is absolutely clear that neither the president nor congressional Republicans value or prioritize the needs of the American public. Americans want a Congress that is willing to fix the economy that Donald Trump broke. We are willing every day of the week to do that hard work, to come together, to address these pressing issues. But $100 billion for something Americans don't want? We have to reject it. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, while my Democrat colleagues are counting the pennies that we're on this defense supplemental, remember baseline battlefield readiness. That's it. Just what they need to do their job. It's actually about $67 billion. Meanwhile, the open border policies of our Democrat colleagues have flooded our country with millions of illegals. According to Numbers USA, that's $9,000 per illegal in taxpayer social services to people who aren't here legally, aren't our citizens, and that's more than we spend on our most vulnerable for Medicaid. And with that, I yield to my dear friend, the great Vice Chairman of the Budget Committee from the Keystone State, Mr. Lloyd Smucker, for 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the chairman for yielding, thank him for all of his work on this, what I call a common sense bill. A simple bill really addressing 3 priorities that the American people support, 3 priorities that are core functions of government and that are very, very important. Number 1, election security, ensuring that our elections are conducted fairly, they're conducted securely, and that only American citizens are voting. Voter ID, the American people support that. 80–90% of the people support the idea of showing voter ID when you show up to vote. Number 2, it begins the process, this is instruction to the committees, of providing our service members with the resources that they need to meet growing threats around the world, keeping the American people safe. These individuals who are serving us are putting their lives in harm's way every day. The least we can do is ensure they have the tools and equipment they need to do their jobs and to keep us safe. And then finally, third point in this bill, ensuring our food supply is secure. Our American farmers work very, very hard every single day to feed America and really feed the world. They've had some tough times, and this provides the help they need at this time to ensure that they can continue to feed America. Unfortunately, every Democrat on the House Budget Committee voted against these common sense provisions in this resolution. The American people sent us here to deliver. They sent us here to deliver on these priorities. It's a great bill. I urge my colleagues to support the Save and Protect America Act as it moves through the House. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
I think the chairman, we gave the Democrats, our friends, on the other side of the aisle, opportunity after opportunity, multiple times, to support what 83% of the American people support, which is a photo voter identification to vote in elections in this country. You need an ID to check in a hotel, to fly on an airplane, and in Mondamis, New York, you need it to shovel snow. But it's not important enough for the cornerstone of this democratic republic. The American people aren't fooled. We're not fooled. We're going to do this so that we can continue with this great country of ours and with the confidence of the American people in the outcome of the elections. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chair, this has been a remarkable debate. It seems the other side wants to talk about pretty much any other issue than affordability. They want to talk about Ukraine, I heard cited, and let me just correct what the chair said a few minutes ago. This is not the Democrats' war in Ukraine. It is Mr. Putin's war in Ukraine because he launched a brutal, unprovoked invasion on the people of Ukraine. And the reason why the United States, with our NATO allies, have stood together in financially supporting freedom in Ukraine is because it is not just about Ukraine. It is about whether we will have peace in Europe or whether we will repeat the mistakes that got us into World War II. That used to be a bipartisan consensus, by the way, in this country for the last 80 years until this recent president. We also then heard an absurd charge that somehow The folks on the other side have brought down the deficit and debt. They even cited the CBO. Funny, because they've tended to ignore the bipartisan Congressional Budget Office when the CBO pointed out their bill last year, their big reconciliation 1.0, according to the CBO, added $4.7 trillion to our national debt, the biggest debt buster bill in American history. So we can talk about all of these ancillary issues, or we can talk about what is the number one issue on people's minds. Things are too damn expensive. They want costs to come down. Instead, under this Republican Congress, costs are only going through the roof. With that, Mr. Chair, I am happy to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, very distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Omar.
Minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member. The chairman, Mr. Arrington, recently said, Democrats are counting pennies. That feels like an insult because $95 billion, that is, Mr. Chairman, what you and the Republicans are asking Congress to approve. That's where the money, here's where the money goes. Tens of billions for the Pentagon, billions more for the CIA to continue funding this illegal war with Trump, and billions to help states implement the SAFE Act, legislation that could make it harder for millions of eligible Americans to vote. Meanwhile, working families are struggling to put food on the table, gas in their tanks, pay their rent, and afford health care. Instead of investing in the actual needs of the American people, this bill pours more money into war and Trump's voter suppression agenda. This is not counting pennies. This is our tax dollars that you are wasting on death and destruction. This bill does nothing to help lower cost or help struggling Americans. This bill does not speak to the values that we should carry or the priorities that we should have when we put forth a budget. This bill gets our priorities wrong. I urge all of you to vote against it, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, when the Democrats had total control, they heaped taxes and regulations on our job creators. They attacked with a whole of government force against domestic energy producers. They waived work requirements for able-bodied adults. They allowed illegals under our social safety net. But they did give a tax break to green energy corporations. They gave tax subsidies to the tune of $800 billion, along with hundreds of billions of dollars in wasted stimulus checks. Juxtapose that with 127 million Americans getting a doubled standard deduction, 40 million families getting an enhanced child tax credit, 35 million seniors getting the double deduction for seniors, an average of $7,500, 7.5 million filers got the no tax on tips, 29 million filers got overtime breaks, on average over $3,000. By the way, wages are up. That's what's happening because our policies are delivering for the American people and working families. With that, I want to yield to my friend, another member of the Budget Committee from the Tar Heel State, Mr. Moore, for 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in strong support of the House budget resolution. This resolution and this reconciliation package builds on the working families tax cuts that were passed into law last year that have lowered taxes for more Americans than probably any tax bill in decades. I want to talk about one thing, though, that seems to get glossed over by my friends on the other side, and that is the Save America Act that is in here. You know, the overwhelming majority of Americans support voter ID for when it comes to voting. My home state, North Carolina, a little over a decade ago, we adopted it, and we've actually seen even greater voter participation since doing so. I would raise the question to some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Have they not seen the news that just showed that 6,600 votes were cast in New Jersey by non-citizens? Voter fraud is happening. That has been discovered. That is documented. And the Save America Act, which is a part of this, voter ID, makes it very clear that for someone to vote, they need to be a citizen, as required by the Constitution, and they also must present a form of ID. This is easy, simple stuff. That is in this bill as well. So those who vote against this bill also vote against this common sense reform that is where we want it easy to vote, but hard to cheat. And I got to say, Mr. Chairman, I'm very proud of what the Budget Committee has done in building a responsible budget that funds critical needs right now with our military, with threats that we have against us from around the world, and at the same time responsibly spends money and maintains these tax cuts that we passed. With that, I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
I reserve, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from New York, a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Tonko.
Gentleman's recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republican leadership has claimed that this proposal will address our nation's most immediate priorities. Well, that could not be further from the truth. This budget gives this administration a blank check to continue their war of choice with Iran. It makes it harder for Americans to exercise their fundamental right to vote. And most importantly, it fails to meaningfully improve the lives of everyday Americans. Those are certainly not the priorities my constituents have asked me to fight for. My constituents worry about their ability to go to the doctor, yet this budget doesn't have a dime for health care. They worry about their ability to put food on the table, yet this budget will do nothing to lower the cost of groceries. They worry about their utility costs and how much it might cost to fill up their car with gas, yet this budget makes no effort to lower energy costs and will keep gas costs high by continuing President Trump's senseless war with Iran. They worry about presidential overreach, yet there is nothing to rein in this lawless administration. This budget does not have anything for the people of New York's 20th Congressional District. So I urge my colleagues to vote no on this farce of a budget. Let's stop the pain. Let's stop the consequence. Let's go forward with progress. Defeat this bill. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned earlier that the Republican Party is united and unrelenting in delivering for the American people. That doesn't happen without a fearless leader. And the legend from Louisiana, my dear friend, Mr. Steve Scalise, I yield to him 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank my dear colleague from Texas for yielding. We are truly going to miss him, but he's got a lot of great work left to do as a chairman of the Budget Committee, not the least of which is this important bill that's being brought forward, Mr. Chairman, a bill that is critical to ensuring the hallmark of democracy, and that is the right to vote. One person, one vote. And if you look at all of the things that we've been working with President Trump to do to make life more affordable for working families, over and over again we see nothing but obstruction from Democrats. It's sad to say, it's sad to see. The American people are watching a party that has become a rudderless ship, running off the left edge, socialists taking over, watching what is going on to that other party. Look at some of the things that we've been able to do, even with their obstruction. Working to produce more energy in America so we can lower costs for American families, while every Democrat voted no. Working to lower tax rates for working families. Yes, no tax on overtime, a benefit that has helped over 30 million Americans. These aren't the millionaires and the billionaires that Democrats go fight for every day. This is hard-working families making under $100,000 a year, many of them shift workers, law enforcement officers. Maybe they voted against that bill because they want to defund the police, not help police officers and firefighters have a little bit more money in their pocket with no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. Somebody making $32,000 a year on average has thousands more in their pocket now because of the work we did. And how did we pay for it, Mr. Chairman? We paid for it by putting anti-fraud measures in that bill. Yes, going after theft of American taxpayer dollars, and not just small-time folks. You've got foreign countries operating with criminal organizations in states like Minnesota. We saw it, we documented it, but you couldn't stop it because we needed the measures. We tried to work with Democrats on it, but for whatever reason, every step of the way, they blocked it. They blocked it until we put it in the reconciliation bill. And then when the tools were in place, President Trump was able to go out and recoup not millions, but billions and tens of billions of dollars that we were able to take out of the hands of people stealing your money, and we put it in the pockets of hard-working families, overtime workers, waiters, waitresses, senior citizens who now have a tax credit. All of that we paid for with money that was being stolen, and every step of the way Democrats opposed it. They would rather theft of your tax dollars go to fraudsters than hardworking families have their money back. So their obstruction is nothing new, Mr. Chairman. And then we get to today, where we say, shouldn't we make sure our men and women in uniform have the tools they need to do their job safely? Shouldn't we make sure that our farmers get the relief they need so we can keep working to lower food costs? And oh, by the way, can't we ensure the integrity of the American vote? Basic things that most Americans understand. Democrats in Washington don't. They go back home and they give 4th of July speeches, and then they get on an airplane and says transformation happens. They get up here and they start voting against the wishes of the American people over and over and over again. And why? Not just to defend fraudsters. If you know that requiring a picture ID, just something so basic that every American understands, which, by the way, those same Democrats have to show that picture ID to get on the airplane to come up here and vote for socialist policies, but then yet they don't want that to be the case when you vote. And then they would say, don't worry, there's no fraud. There's no fraud. Well, why is it just today's New York Post uncovered yet again what we've known all along? Here in New Jersey, they just admitted 6,600 non-citizens are on their rolls. Many of them voting in elections, illegals on their rolls voting. And they document in this article many elections that were decided by just a small number of votes. In fact, the margin of the theft, the stolen votes, are that margin. You can stop that by just requiring a picture ID. And then you would say, well, then why would anybody be against that? And they'll hide behind all these other ruses, but they'll vote no. We've got a bill later today to say, well, let's ban members of Congress from trading stocks. And you're going to watch the board on an issue that every American understands, and almost every Democrat's going to vote no. And you'll say, why is that? Because it requires a photo ID. What's so harmful about that? You can't go get an unlimited bowl of pasta at Olive Garden without showing a photo ID. Can we at least have the Olive Garden standard when we protect the democracy and the franchise that we have to keep this great democracy? And that's just requiring that you prove you are who you say you are. And this, Mr. Chairman, is such a fundamental principle. Not hard to explain to the American people, but actively opposed by Democrats in Congress. And it just begs the question, why? Who are they protecting? Who are they protecting with a no vote, Mr. Chairman? If they know illegals are voting in many of these states where they don't require photo ID, then why would they vote against the requirement? Why? It's a great question. Every American, Mr. Chairman, is going to be able to watch this vote and know where your member of Congress is. It's critically important for accountability that we all stand up and be counted. I'm strongly for this. I think it's critical we protect the sanctity of every American's right to vote. And if somebody else is stealing your vote because they're voting illegally, thousands in New Jersey, then it takes away your right to vote, Mr. Chairman. We ought to be protecting everybody's right to vote, especially those people who are legally allowed to vote, not people who shouldn't be allowed by law to vote. Let's pass this important bill, get it over to the Senate so they can do their job and get this to the President's desk. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields.
Chairman reserves.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our majority leader actually just referenced something in which I can report to the House. I have personal experience. Having ordered the bottomless pit of pasta at Olive Garden, I can confirm No, you do not need an ID. What an absurd claim. This is what we've heard throughout this entire debate. They want to talk about Olive Garden. They want to talk about IDs. They want to talk about Biden. They want to talk about Ukraine. They want to talk about anything and everything to distract from this core fact. They have absolutely no plan or agenda whatsoever to bring down costs for the American people. According to the Joint Economic Committee, Trump's inflation, all told, the combination of his tariff taxes, the combination of all the laws that they've passed for the last year and a half, the combination of increased gas prices because of this reckless war in Iran, all told, the average American family has paid out of pocket $3,100 more for goods and services as a result of the Trump Republican inflation. So I can understand why, with that abysmal record, they want to talk about anything except for the number one issue on the minds of the American people. With that, Mr. Speaker, I am now happy to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. McGarvey.
Gentleman's recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a great scene in the movie Jurassic Park where the scientist says, you guys were so preoccupied with whether you could, you forgot to ask whether you should. I think the Republicans have been so preoccupied with counting votes to see if they can do the president's bidding that you have forgotten to ask whether you should. First, you brought a budget bill to the floor of this House that took away people's health care and food so you could give billionaires and corporations the largest permanent tax break in American history. Next, President Trump said, I need $70 billion more for the ICE agents acting as my personal police force. They were going around, they were using kids as bait, ripping apart families, murdering American citizens on the streets of our country. You guys said, fine, we'll do that. Now, Trump wants another $95 billion for his forever war in the Middle East. 18 Americans are dead. There is a 19-year-old coming home in a coffin this week, never to spend another holiday or birthday with her family. Everything from gas to groceries has gone up, and America is less safe because of it. But you guys say, absolutely, no problem, we'll do it. Is there anything Trump wants you guys will say no to? I think the answer is no. Democrats offered common sense amendments that said, let's lower the cost of health care, let's lower the cost of goods, let's end corruption. You guys said no to all of them. I even offered an amendment that said you can't use $400 million of taxpayer money to build your ballroom vanity project. What do Republicans say? Fine with us. We'll do it because we can. But should you? No.
I have to yield an additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Texas.
I respect my friend from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but this false narrative that's perpetuated every time Republicans actually go after the waste in this town and the fraud that's being perpetrated on taxpayers and the vulnerable who need these programs, they start saying, we're kicking the vulnerable off, we're throwing them into the streets. And all I ask you to do is look to the nonpartisan CBO once again, and I submit this letter for the record, Mr. Chairman. The only people that aren't on the Medicaid rolls today that were on them before were illegals in this country that Joe Biden and Democrats allowed to siphon money away from Americans. People who were ineligible, or people who were able to work, but who refused to work for the generous support of hardworking taxpayers. We stand on that proudly. We stand by it. And I believe the American people support us every step of the way. And with that, I yield 1 minute to my friend from the Hoosier State, Indiana, Mr. Stutzman, another proud member of the Budget Committee.
Gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the chairman of the Budget Committee for this strong resolution. I rise today in support of the House Budget Resolution. This framework is an important step of protecting our elections as well as supporting our troops. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to the American people to safeguard the electoral process, yet the Senate has been unable to do so. Over 80% of Americans agree you must show proof of citizenship and ID to vote, and this budget framework moves us closer to enacting these reforms. In addition to protecting our elections at home, U.S. service members are working day and night to be sure Americans are safe from a nuclear bomb in Iran and to advance peace in the Middle East. Our military is the most lethal fighting force known to man, and they are depending on us to help them finish the job. We must be courageous to support these men and women by supplying the resources they need. We owe Americans secure elections, along with a strong national defense to preserve our great nation. Therefore, I urge my colleagues to support this resolution, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Texas reserves. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I inquire as to how much time remains on each side?
Gentleman has 9 minutes remaining.
9 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I am happy to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from Rhode Island, a very distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Amo.
Mr. Speaker, is this Groundhog Day? We must be stuck in some kind of infinite time loop because Republicans are trying to ram through a third unpopular deficit-busting bill that does nothing to lower costs for Americans on top of cuts to health care and their continued investments in cruelty. Unfortunately, this is actually happening. Republicans are trying to pass another bad budget. And all this for the farm aid that Republicans are touting as necessary because Trump's illegal war in Iran and chaotic tariffs jacked up costs for farmers. The billions in defense funding that Republicans claim is necessary for Trump's choice to wage the illegal Iran war depleted our stockpiles. And the only necessary action that my constituents are imploring Republicans to take, lowering costs for the American people, it's completely missing from this failing effort. Republicans are running up billions on America's credit card so they can send our service members to fight another forever war in the Middle East. And they're working to pass a voter suppression bill that won't secure our elections but will make it harder for Americans to vote. My Republican colleagues tell Americans that they're working for them. The American people are smarter than that. They know that what Republicans are doing, and they will not forgive them for what they've done. I urge every member to vote no on this latest bad budget, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I yield a minute to my dear friend from California, Mr. Tom McClintock, also another proud member of the House Budget Committee.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we can all agree that this is not what a budget resolution should be used for, but unfortunately necessity commands it. Reconciliation gives us a powerful tool to bring mandatory spending in line with revenues. Unfortunately, the exigencies that we face have left us with no choice but to use this process to assure that we can replenish our arsenals and strengthen the integrity of our elections. The minority Democrats have vowed to obstruct these necessities in the Senate at a time when we are at war with Iran and at a time when public confidence in our election process is at an all-time low. Reconciliation, which this resolution sets in motion, is the only path we can take to achieve these vital measures. I regret the circumstances that force us to employ reconciliation for this purpose, and I pray for the day when Congress fulfills its legal duty to enact a real budget resolution that sets our country back on the road to fiscal health. Yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Texas reserves.
Yes.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to correct the record. Moments ago, the distinguished chairman of the Budget Committee referenced a letter from CBO on June 24th in which he alleges they, according to him, cited that the only people who lost their Medicaid coverage because of the bill they passed last summer were illegals. That is not at all what the letter says. I have it here in front of me, and I'll be happy to submit it to the record at the end of this debate. Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear, however, what CBO has found is that the bill they passed last summer, Reconciliation 1.0, will kick more than 15 million Americans off of their health care coverage. Already 8 million have lost their health care coverage, with another at least 7 million to go. This is a health care crisis in this country. It was entirely created by the other side. With that, I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Texas.
Chairman reserves.
Gentleman from Texas reserves. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman's recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank all of the speakers who we've heard from in this debate. Mr. Chair, the choice could not be more clear. The American people asked us to lower their costs. Instead, this Republican majority has delivered higher prices, less health care, more debt, and now tens of billions of dollars for a reckless and unnecessary war. This reconciliation effort does nothing to lower the cost of groceries, or the cost of housing, or health care, or energy, or gas. Not one provision provides meaningful relief to working families. They don't even attempt to do so. Not one word on any of the things I just cited. What it does do, however, is add nearly $100 billion to the deficit, make new voting restrictions, and hand President Trump another massive check to continue a war that is driving up prices here at home and exacting a devastating human toll. Sadly, 3 American service members lost their lives this past weekend, bringing the total number killed in this conflict to 17. We mourn them. I think I can speak for the entire House when I say this. We mourn them, we honor their service and sacrifice, and we keep their families and loved ones in our thoughts. But the best way to honor their memory and to protect the brave men and women still serving our country is not to continue sending them into harm's way without a coherent strategy, a clear objective, and an achievable endgame. It is to end this war that President Trump has so badly botched. Democrats stand ready to work with anyone serious about lowering costs and improving the lives of the American people. This bill does neither. We have a gentleman in the White House who campaigned on the slogan, America First. Remember that? Their bill in front of us is America Last. I urge my colleagues to vote no. And with that, I yield the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself such time as I may consume for
The
closing.
gentleman's recognized.
I want to make this quick because I want to say something about my ranking member. Maybe in case I don't have time, let me say it now. What a gentleman, what a statesman. This place would work a lot better if you had the tone and the commitment to civility and to just being constructive around here when you can agree. We don't agree on this. He's impassioned, I'm impassioned. But what a good man. The people of Pennsylvania must be very proud of Brendan Boyle. I am. Now, we need to support our troops. This is emergency funding. We need to support our producers who give us food security, and that is a national security issue. We do it every year. And we need to give the American people the confidence that this and every election going forward is fair and accurate. We need that for this great republic to succeed and to thrive into the future. So I want to thank my ranking member. I want to urge all my fellow members of Congress to support this important piece of legislation. With that, I yield.
All right. All time for general debate has expired. An amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-37 shall be considered as adopted. The concurrent resolution as amendment shall be considered as read. Under the rule, the committee rises.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union has had under consideration House Con Resolution 113, and pursuant to House Resolution 1438, I report the concurrent resolution is amended by that resolution back to the House.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 113 and pursuant to House Resolution 1438 reports the concurrent resolution as amended by that resolution back to the House. Under the rule, the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the concurrent resolution under Clause 10 of Rule 20. The yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. As a gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stiles, seek recognition.
Pursuant to HRES 1438, I call up the bill HR 7008, the Stop Insider Trading Act, and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 409, HR 7008, a bill to amend Chapter 131 of Title V to require certain restrictions on stocks for members of Congress and their spouses and dependents and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 1438, in lieu of the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on the House Administration, printed in the bill, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-38, modified by the amendment printed in Part B of the House Report 119-755, is adopted and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill as amended shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the House Administration or their respective designees. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stile, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Morrell, will each control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stile.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include additional materials on this bill.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself so much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of the Stop Insider Trading Act. There's a lot of talk in this town about draining the swamp and cleaning up Washington. Today, the rubber hits the road. Good governance matters, and the Committee on House Administration is leading the way. Under current law, members of Congress are required to publicly disclose their stock trades, but these disclosures lack details and are often filed months after a transaction. This lack of transparency and the continued practice of members purchasing stock is fueling public frustration. It's time we ban members of Congress from being able to buy individual companies' shares of stock. Doing so removes even the appearance of impropriety. Mr. Speaker, we have an opportunity to pass transformational congressional ethics reform. This is the first congressional stock trading ban to receive a vote on the floor of the House. Today, every American will know where their member stands. If you want to day trade, there's a place for that. It's called Wall Street. If you want to come to Washington, you should be working on behalf of the American people. In addition, this bill also includes a common sense proposal that we've advanced through committee on voter ID. Voter ID strengthens election integrity and is nonpartisan and it's common sense. In this country, you have to show a photo ID to fly, to open a bank account, buy a beer, more recently, to enjoy a never-ending pasta bowl at Olive Garden. But you don't have to show an ID to vote. States like Minnesota, Illinois, California, and others, we're literally not doing the job of securing our elections when the easy task with photo ID is in front of us. Mr. Speaker, it's a simple concept. To vote in a federal election, you need to show a photo ID. 24 states already require a form of photo ID to vote. This bill, of course, allows provisional voting if someone forgets their ID when they go to the polls. Again, common sense. That's why it's so popular with the American people. They understand it. They know the need for this common sense reform. Photo ID will help strengthen election integrity, bolster voter confidence, and increase participation. That's a good thing for our democracy. Mr. Speaker, these 2 proposals will clean up Washington and strengthen the integrity of our election. I urge all of my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, what we are considering here today is a remarkable display of cynicism, even for this institution, even for this Republican leadership team. The American people are desperate for us to clean up the culture of corruption that pervades Washington.
Americans see their elected leaders on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue enriching themselves, some to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. Headline after headline. Members of Congress tipping off insiders to reap huge payouts from prediction markets. Members of Congress buying up private stocks just days before Pentagon announcements that will balloon their financial portfolios. And what are Speaker Johnson and House Republicans doing about this? They're pretending here on the floor today to address the issue. They are pushing the so-called Stop Insider Trading Act, a name meant entirely to trick the American people, because this bill, quite simply, is a sham. The bill allows members of the Congress to continue owning and trading stocks. That's right. The so-called Stop Insider Trading Act actually allows members of Congress to own and trade stocks. But even this half measure, or should I say quarter measure, goes too far for Republican leadership. How do we know? What's the tell? How do we know that the Republican posturing is all performative? That Republicans do not want a stock trading bill ban to become law? Because they've added a poison pill to this bill. They've added provisions that have absolutely nothing to do with stock trading and everything to do with their obsession with the 2020 election. That's right, the Save America Act is back yet again. The American people keep cutting the head off this bill, flooding phone lines to their members and senators, demanding we block this anti-voter bill. And so far, their voices are being heard. The resistance is working. But like the Hydra, these heads keep growing back. The Save Act again, the Save America Act. They've attached it to CRs, continuing resolutions. They attach it to a spending bill funding the State Department and other completely unrelated agencies. The president tried to force it on the American people through illegal executive orders blocked by the courts. So now Republicans come limping back from a losing fight. Sometimes you should just stop, but let's acknowledge the reality of what we're doing here. Republicans have corrupted their so-called stock trading bill with a decaying piece of the Save America Act corpse. The bill we're considering today would force voters in America to surrender photocopies of their photo IDs in their mail ballot envelopes. This isn't just a voter ID bill, it's a bill to destroy vote by mail, something the president routinely rails against, despite the fact that the president routinely uses mail-in voting himself, the kind of double standard Americans have come to particularly enjoy from this president. A bill that would dispatch millions of American voters to Kinko's. Some of us are old enough to remember Kinko's. I guess it's now FedEx, or Staples, or the public library, to scan and print their IDs, to shove those IDs into their mail ballots, risking their constitutional right to a secret ballot if not packaged properly, to send their ID copies off to election offices in the hopes that the ballot will be counted, that the ballot won't be discarded on the counting room floor. Now, you might ask, why would these ballots be at risk of being thrown out? Because the bill would explicitly exclude forms of voter ID that millions of Americans are accustomed to using today. You use your student ID, ballot thrown out. Your concealed carry permit, ballot thrown out. Your employer ID, ballot thrown out. Your tribal ID without an expiration date on it, common on tribal IDs. You get the picture, ballot thrown out. I could go on and on. Now you might, sitting at home watching this, think, I know Washington, D.C. is a dysfunctional place, but they can't be that irrational, can they? Surely election officials and voters would have time to prepare for this seismic shift in American elections, right? Sorry to say, you'd be overestimating how much House Republicans care about voters, about election officials, about elections themselves, because this bill would take effect in 90 days. When is 90 days from today? Well, October 20th, 2026, 2 weeks before the midterm elections. That's right. Republicans are trying to force a massive change to American voting law, eradicating mail voting as we know it, right in the middle of the final month of an election. 2 weeks before Election Day. By October 20th, state officials, we still have a system where the time, manner, and places of elections are run by state legislatures. Those state officials, state legislatures, will have already mailed out millions of ballots to voters. Voters will have already returned some of these ballots. So what are election officials to do? Count the ballots cast with student IDs on October 19th and shred the ones that arrive after that on October 20th? Is that what they're going to do? Who's going to train election officials about what IDs to accept, what to do with mail ballots, missing photocopies, and when will they do it? There will be chaos, complete shambles. This bill is plain absurdity, written in ink, printed in the congressional record. But lest we forget, the confusion is the point. Chaos is the point. Republicans know that they will lose in November. They know that people strongly, strongly object to their handling of the economy, the war in Iran, the immigration fiasco, which has resulted in the death of American citizens. They know the verdict in November will not be kind to them and shouldn't be. So they have one hope at winning: disruption, disarray, subversion. That's why they have redrawn congressional maps from coast to coast in the middle of this year, of this term, the middle of this decade. That's why they keep trying again and again to change the rules in the middle of the game. Now, if they want to force states to make massive, extreme, last-minute changes just days before the midterm elections, states forced to retrain staff, reprint ballots and ballot envelopes, and the process, with what time? With what money? Because you might ask, who's going to pay for all this? This is a seismic change. Not Washington, not House Republicans. They're too busy trying to pay for an unconscionable war in Iran, a war that has led to the tragic deaths of 18 American service members, in a war that no one asked for and certainly no Americans want. Republicans will send American taxpayer money to the Middle East, but not to your local election office. They simply don't care about you. They don't care about the price of your gas, the price of your groceries, the sanctity of your ballot. They do not care. So again, who will pay for this? Sorry to break it to you, the viewers watching this, but you will. Your family, your town, your city, your county, your state, your local election administrator, Republican and Democrat, who are required to bear the burden of this change. This is an unfunded mandate, plain and simple. I remember hearing for years my Republican friends, no unfunded mandates. This is the mother of all unfunded mandates. 2 weeks before an election, costing tens of billions of dollars, you're going to get stuck with the bill. This is a fiat from a Washington awash in corruption, telling you how to run your elections. Because you know who else will pay for this? America's democracy. I say again, this bill is not about voter ID. It's about ending your ability to cast a free and fair ballot. For the sake of American elections, I strongly, strongly urge the House to reject this zombie bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Miller, a member of the House Administration Committee.
Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of Chairman Stiles' bill, H.R. 7008, the Stop Insider Trading Act, of which I'm a proud co-sponsor. As members of the United States Congress, it is our job to preserve the integrity of this institution and take seriously the responsibility placed on us by our constituents. This legislation will bring about a more transparent and accountable Congress and will be a strong measure to restore the American people's trust in this institution. While older laws have prohibited members from using non-public information when trading, they did not go far enough. More robust measures should be put in place, and that is exactly what this bill does. As the American people have seen, members of this body have become extremely wealthy from trading the stock market while in office, and it is precisely because of this that the American people have lost faith in Congress and in government. We are elected to this office as a privilege to serve in this chamber, not a right, and we should not be using our positions for our own personal and financial gain. The American people need to be reminded that we are working for them, that we have taken a solemn oath to protect and defend the Constitution, not our own bottom line. And in light of my colleague claiming that this bill is a poison pill because the Save America Act is included, which we have passed multiple times out of this House with not any support from the Democrats. The Democrats are opposed to voter ID and proof of citizenship. They cannot win elections based on their own bad ideas. They have to continue with the fraud and cheating. We know that our voter rolls are outrageously dirty, that there are millions of ineligible voters on the rolls, and I personally, here in D.C., have received 4 ballots in the mail, of which I have not solicited anyone. We have chaos because they will not vote for the Save America Act. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do, before I yield to my friend, I also want to, and I didn't say this in my opening comments, but also it's remarkable that if we're working so hard and endeavoring to convince the American people that they can have faith in what we do as it relates to insider information and moving markets, I find it extraordinary that we would not include the president or vice president, members of the cabinet or the Supreme Court in a bill to make sure that they're not participating. In fact, this is well known, it's been well reported. Since Inauguration Day of last year, President Trump has had more trades individually than have all the members of the United States House and Senate. 535 members. And you know who outtraded all of them combined? President Trump. And he's not in this bill. He's not in it. The Vice President's not in it. The Supreme Court's not in it. People who have legit. In fact, the President, Truth Social, is about to enter into selling access through an app that you will pay for that will give you information on market moves. It is extraordinary that we would somehow suggest that we are protecting the public's interest, that we care deeply about restoring faith in Washington when there is a hole that you could drive many semi-trucks through if we're really trying to clean up this country and to restore faith in the American people. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman, my colleague from the Appropriations Committee, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Pocan.
The gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. As a member of Congress, I don't own any individual stocks because as a byproduct of my job, I get inside information on many publicly traded companies. We don't let people with inside information buy stock because it impacts markets and threatens public trust in a system that so many of our retirement dollars are in. But this bill before us puts members of Congress above the law. It's not a real congressional stock trading ban like other bipartisan measures. This is a weak alternative. It's like Velveeta to real Wisconsin cheese. It's been said this bill has loopholes so big a Qatari jet could go through them. It still allows members to hold stock. It still allows members to buy stock with dividends. It still allows family members to buy stocks for others for any reason. It's basically the opposite of a real stock trading ban from members of Congress, a wolf in sheep's clothing. This bill continues the corruption that marks too much of what's done in Washington. Please don't support this Velveetan weak bill. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from New York reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to go back to a comment that was just made by my colleague, in particular what we refer to as the spousal exception. So as one would read this, but I think it's very important to know, the legislation before us on the Stop Insider Trading Act applies to a member, the member's spouse, and the dependent children of that member. There's what we call the spousal working exception. So if a member's spouse works in a capacity that engages with stock. Think of a life insurance salesman. Maybe your spouse is selling life insurance. We want to make sure that that individual can continue their work. But of course, they'd be banned under this legislation from buying individual companies' shares of stock. And so I think it would be incorrect if we didn't correct the record where it was not accurately stated. that there's no restrictions on family members. This bill specifically takes that into account, includes members, their spouses, and dependent children. With that, I would like to yield 3 minutes to my colleague, the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, on this bill.
The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Stile, for your dedicated hard work on getting this bill to the floor. It wasn't easy. Mr. Speaker, you know, public service is a privilege. It is not a pathway to personal profit. And yet, too many Americans look at us here in Congress and wonder if that line has been blurred. Not proven, not assumed, but simply questioned. And that question alone is a problem, Mr. Speaker, because when lawmakers consistently outperform Wall Street, people start asking questions. They start doubting. They stop trusting in us. For example, Mr. Speaker, there's a member here in our body who entered Congress years ago with a net worth in the thousands, and yet now has a net worth of well more than $200 million. That is exactly why this matters, Mr. Speaker. You know, when I came to Congress, I made it quite clear we should not be trading individual stocks while we're making decisions that shape our economy. And that's why I introduced the Pelosi Act, to draw a bright, unmistakable line. No stock trading, no gray area, no doubt, to be above the appearance of impropriety, as Chairman Stile said. The very legislation we're debating today from my friend Chairman Stile advances that same principle. It says if you have the privilege of serving in this body and serving your constituents, you don't get to personally profit from the markets that you help influence. This isn't complicated, folks. The American people shouldn't have to wonder if their representative is working for them or watching their stock portfolio on their phones here on the House chamber. Let's remove that doubt. Let's restore trust to this body. Let's raise the standard of each and every one of us here in this body today. You know, if I wanted to, I could have made a lot of money in the last 3.5 years that I was here trading stock and probably be able to afford an apartment somewhere in D.C. But I don't, and like a lot of members who don't trade stocks, I sleep on my couch in my office. But you know what? I sleep well. I sleep well knowing that I am doing the right thing. In closing, I grew up in the Church of Christ down in Baytown, Texas. And I worked for a while in West Palm Beach. And there was a preacher there named Dan Jenkins who used to say all the time, it's always right to do right. It's always wrong to do wrong. It's never right to do wrong. And it's never wrong to do right. Mr. Speaker, this bill is the right thing to do, not just for the American people, but for our body to restore trust to us. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you. I suggest the gentleman from Missouri ought to read the bill before the House, because everything he just said would not be cured by what he just talked about. In fact, you may still, under this bill, if it became law, and thankfully it will not, you could still own stock. Let's say you own Boeing stock, and you happen to be on the Armed Services Committee or a defense appropriator, and you sort of say to Pentagon officials, boy, I really like this equipment that Boeing is producing, or Northrop Grumman, if you happen to own them, or other companies. Great companies, but you may own stock in them. There is every single way for you to drive up that stock price and wait, as the owner of that stock, manipulate the situation till the stock price rises, and then you sell it. That's a trade. That is ownership of stock. That is the ability to influence stock holdings you have when you come to Congress. This doesn't divest it. So that gentleman made a great speech. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have anything to do with what the bill does. Besides, you can have private stock. So, and there are reports that people have purchased private stock in companies that then became public, that then were sold to public companies and made windfalls here. You could still do that under this bill. You can engage in crypto. You can buy commodities. You can participate in the prediction markets. I mean, the notion that somehow Americans should see this bill passed and relax and suddenly feel as if the people making public policy decisions in Washington suddenly won't be doing anything in their self-interest, but will instead be doing it in the interest of the American people, it is, the word I used earlier, I contend is exactly what this is. It's a sham. This will not fix anything. And that's what it's intended to, not fix anything, but to make people believe, well, we've addressed it. We haven't addressed anything. That's not what this bill is. And when you add the elements of really trying to subvert this election, there is nothing that argues for this bill. This isn't even a partial way of getting it done. This is a diversion, and it's intended to get people to feel better about something when they shouldn't feel better at all. With that, let me yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Ms. Houlihan.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, two things can be true at the same time. I can support voter ID requirements, which I do, and I can support banning members of Congress from trading stocks, which I do, and I'm in compliance. And I can also oppose this bill because it is not an honest attempt to do either. This bill's stock trading provisions do not go nearly far enough. In this bill, members can retain their investments that they already own, preserving the very conflicts of interest that a real ban would eliminate. Instead, also in this bill, Republicans are attaching new barriers for Americans who vote by mail, requiring photocopies of a very narrow set of acceptable IDs, more narrow than those required in the state of Texas, so narrow that a very similar bill was vetoed by a Republican governor in the state of Ohio. More burdens on voters without access to copiers and more strain on election officials. So if Republicans really wanted to ban member stock trading, bring us a really clean bill, and I will vote for it. In fact, I offered amendments to this bill, and Republicans rejected them all. And additionally, congressional ethics cannot become a Trojan horse for voter suppression. I urge my colleagues to reject this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman yields. The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, who has been a champion of this topic, and we would not be here on the floor of the House of Representatives with an opportunity to pass this stock trading ban without his work. I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman, Mr. Chip Roy.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank the Speaker, and I want to thank my friend from Wisconsin, the chairman, Chairman Stile, for his incredible work on this, his leadership, his friendship, and making sure that we're here today and getting this done. It's been a partnership that I've been happy to engage in, and I'm proud of the legislation that we put forward. And let me say that again to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I am proud of the legislation that we put forward. It is, in fact, good legislation. Let's back up for 1 minute and talk about the problem. Right here, according to the data I've got right now, 11,000 trades totaling between $600 million and $900 million of legislators over the last year. We've got one member, a Democrat, of $79 million of 406 trades. One man, a Republican, $75 million on 1,000 trades. A Democrat, $55 million on 3,923 trades. I could keep going on a bipartisan basis. And I want to make clear, it is a bipartisan problem. I want to take a minute and say that we should recognize the bipartisan nature of the work to get here, even though there's some disagreement here now. I've got friends on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Morelli, Seth Magaziner, others that I've been working with closely to try to advance this cause, and I want to thank them because they have worked in good faith to try to address this issue. And I want to be clear to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I've heard excuses often. Says, well, I've got a right to trade equities. I've got a right to trade stocks. Let me be very clear, okay? You do not. You do not have that right. There is no such right guaranteed in the Constitution. It is a privilege to serve in the United States Congress. When you come to Congress, you're supposed to set that aside. You're supposed to come here and serve. You come here for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, preferably not 40, and you come here and you set down your personal interest and you serve. Well, unfortunately, a lot of members have been violating the spirit of that. And that is why we're here today. We passed legislation in 2012 that made a lot of this transparent. Today we have legislation on the floor that I want to go back and say that I'm proud of, that would stop the ability of members of Congress to acquire equities and would have significant transparency and pre-sale requirements before you can sell equities you hold. Yes, I had legislation that would have required divestiture. I prefer that approach, but you got to build a coalition in a body. And I think this is a giant step forward. And I wish my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and my colleagues on this side of the aisle would recognize that and praise it. Because if we did that, it would be night and day. If this body, if people were not allowed to acquire Microsoft while you're voting on technology, acquire Lockheed when you're voting on defense, acquire pharma or big insurance when you're voting on healthcare policies, when you're supposed to be focusing on the American people and not focusing on your portfolio. That's where we should be as a body. I'm proud that we're bringing this legislation forward today. And I hope that everybody will support it, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on. Obviously, I'm the lead author also of the Save America Act. That legislation has been offered on the back of this bill. I think my colleagues on the other side of the aisle should support it. I don't think they're supporting it for a lot of political reasons, but I'm not going to debate that here because right now we're talking about this bill addressing stock trading. But I'm going to say one thing that I think merits being said. I think we should be having a straight up or down vote on the stock trading bill. That's what I think. I think my friends that worked in good faith to do that deserve that on both sides of the aisle. I'm going to end up voting for this because I support both measures. But I'm not done this year demanding that we have a straight up or down vote on stock trading. Because you can't, whether you're on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle, hide behind the SAVE Act for your opposition to what we need to do to change the culture of this institution. I want to thank Chairman Stile. I want to thank my friends that I've worked on this before, and I want to yield back. I appreciate it.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do want to thank Mr. Roy, who I've had the chance to be in a number of meetings with about this issue, about restoring faith and trust in America. But recognize, I came to Congress and sold all of the stock that my wife and I owned. And at the time, as I recall, it's been many years, but Microsoft, Google, Alpha, a number of technology stocks. If I had come here under this bill, should this become law, I'd be able to continue to hold on to all of them. And honestly, depending on what committees I serve, I could do a great deal to make sure that my investments were guarded, that they were protected, that they were furthered. It's not supposed to be the way this functions. That's not what we have been talking about. Holding on to stock when you are in a position to affect markets is wrong. Simply put, it's wrong. We should end that. Require the divestiture of stock by members of Congress, the President, the Vice President, and members of the courts. That's what we should be doing. Anything less than that, particularly when you can continue to hold stock, continue to trade by selling stock when it's appropriate for you in your portfolio, and even to be able to take dividends from stock you own and reinvest and buy more stock. That's allowed under this bill as well. I do want to, others have pointed out Democratic members and recognize them. There are glaring examples, however. To reiterate the point, this bill would not prevent insider trading. It would just trick the American people into thinking we're trying to do something about corruption when we're not. Take one glaring example. In December of last year, a member of the House Republican leadership purchased up to $250,000 in private shares of Elon Musk's XAI. Within days, the Department of Defense announced an expanded partnership with XAI to provide Grok AI tools. Convenient timing, no doubt. I'm sure most Americans would love to have participated in such convenient timing. This Republican member of leadership, who sits on the Armed Services Committee, including on the Subcommittee on Cyber, Information Technologies, and Innovation, just happened to buy XAI stock shortly before the Department of Defense's announcement. They sure did. That's what they did. And it gets worse. Earlier this year, Elon Musk's SpaceX acquired XAI soon thereafter. SpaceX launched an initial public offering, and the value of the XAI shares this member of Congress had acquired skyrocketed. In fact, the member may have made as much as a 60% return on the member's investment if liquidated at the right time, potentially a $150,000 profit on a $250,000 initial investment. That's extraordinary. And yet this bill that the Republicans are purporting would restore trust in America would not have in any way impeded the ability of a member to do that. If that isn't extraordinary, if that's not an indictment on what's happening here, I don't know what is. And with that, let me yield 1.5 minutes to my dear friend, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Krishnamurthy, is recognized for 90 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to H.R. 7008. I've helped lead bipartisan efforts to ban stock trading by members of Congress, and I'm deeply frustrated that the majority refuses to take the issue seriously enough at this crucial time when Congress's stock is an all-time low. We should not be playing partisan games on this. The Republican majority is pushing a bill that still allows members of Congress to hold, sell, and even buy certain individual stocks. And they've paired it with the Save American Act, a voter suppression measure that would make it harder, not easier, for Americans to participate in our elections. I agree with Congressman Roy on this particular point. We should have an up or down vote on the bipartisan Restore Trust in Congress Act, which we have all supported, which has over 200 signatures, I believe, as a discharge petition. And it finally bans trading by members of by members of Congress, their spouses, and dependent children. Congress is not a casino, and it's time we proved it. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from New York reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry, to speak on the bill.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for his leadership and his dogged determination to bring this to the floor. I'm a proud original co-sponsor of not only this bill, but every other bipartisan bill that is not here. So the record for me is clear on this. Last year alone, members made, according to my count, over 13,000 trades totaling over $600 million, with 202 representatives and 56 senators trading, both Republican and Democrat. And every single year, at some point, somebody publishes a list of those who were most successful, the members that were most successful in trading. But you'll never see my name on there because I don't own any stock, no commodities, no crypto, none of it, because, Mr. Speaker, came here to serve. And if you know anything about service, you know service is about sacrifice. Service isn't about what you can get. It is about what you can give. I thank the sponsor, the chairman, the author of this bill, and for his dogged determination. I'm glad we're going to vote on it, and everybody's going to see. I yield the balance.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to yield to one of my dear friends and colleagues in just a moment, but I want to go back to a comment I made earlier in my opening about the timing of this bill and the effective date. The bill, 90 days from now, is October 20th, 2 weeks before Election Day. Millions of ballots, mail ballots, absentee ballots, and several years ago, this Congress passed the Uniform Overseas Citizens Absentee Voter Act. So for uniformed and overseas persons who get to vote, UOCAVA ballots, they'll already be en route to voters. Voters will have already cast ballots, perhaps in the millions by that time. So how are election administrators across the United States supposed to comply with this new federal law dropped right in the middle of the final weeks of the 2026 midterm elections? It's effectively election malpractice. It is creating discord. It will create countless questions. I don't know who is going to pay for the retraining. I don't even know how you would do the retraining. And election workers are going to be stuck, I guess, as I envision it, with envelopes, which will need to have not only photocopies, and I don't know where those, by the way, I don't know where any of this information gets stored after the fact. Is it going to be in a vault somewhere? Is your driver's license, is your proper ID going to be kept somewhere? And by the way, how will they make sure that when someone, as they will no doubt do, put their ID in their ballot, so eliminates any chance that they have secrecy of their ballot, who's managing that? The local election administrators? They're going to train all of their workers within 2 weeks of Election Day on a brand new system that has never been done anywhere in this country. An ID, and I went through this in the Rules Committee, Most of the ID in most of our states, even the most conservative states in America, have broader ID requirements than this. So student IDs, not allowed. Most states have it. All kinds of IDs that people have, they won't be able to do it anymore. Texas won't be in compliance. Florida won't be in compliance. Ohio, the governor of Ohio just vetoed a bill like this, which effectively criticized the intent of the bill and said it wouldn't do anything for voter security. So how does this all happen? And the purpose of the change is to throw election administration into disarray. I don't know how you could see it otherwise, because at the very least, if you were thinking about this, you would make it effective next year or the year after and give local administrators time to prepare and probably give them some resources so they could do all manner of things necessary to comply with, admittedly, a bad law, but at least be something you could say with a straight face was serious, or an attempt to be serious. This isn't serious. This is creating discord. It is reckless. It is irresponsible, and ultimately will once again put the question in front of American voters: Are you really sure you should have confidence in our system? Because I think it's clear some people want Americans to doubt our system, which, by the way, they should have confidence in. These election administrators, Democrats and Republicans at the local level, care deeply about their work. They see this as a sacred trust. People aren't getting in and voting, and there's no design to have all manner of things that they suggest happen. It's simply not true. And that's why people will look at this, will look at January 6th of 2021, they'll look at all these things and conclude rightly that all we want to do is create discord and subversion of this democratic system. With that, I'd like to yield a minute to my colleague, my friend, and partner on the Committee on House Administration, the gentle lady from California, Ms. Torres.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to expose this package for what it truly is: a protection plan for powerful insiders disguised as a crackdown on insider trading. The so-called Stop Insider Trading Act does not ban congressional stock trading. It leaves major loopholes open, including trading in private companies and other markets. During committee markup, I offered a simple amendment to close these loopholes: freeze existing portfolios and stop dividend reinvestments. But my Republican colleagues rejected it. They chose protecting themselves over accountability and transparency. Now they've attached this watered-down stock trading bill to legislation that makes it even harder for Americans to vote, especially women in traditional marriages like mine, where I changed my name and took on my husband's name. The Voter ID Act eliminates trusted registration methods, restricts acceptable IDs, and creates unnecessary barriers between American citizens and the ballot box. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this bill, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields. Gentleman from New York Reserve.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but I just want to make an inquiry of time.
Has 6 minutes remaining.
6 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Keene.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I believe that members of Congress should serve the public, not profit from public office. That is why I strongly support the Stop Insider Trading Act, which will prohibit members of Congress, their spouses, and dependent children from purchasing individual stocks. I have worked to lead by example by placing all of my investable assets into a blind structure that is managed by independent professionals. I do not direct, influence, or participate in any investment decision, and every transaction occurs without my input, without my prior knowledge, and without my direction. That approach goes above and beyond current House ethics rules. It is past time that this entire body be held to that higher standard. Public service is a public trust. I urge every Republican and every Democrat to vote yes and to hold every member of Congress to that high standard that American people deserve. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Virginia, my friend, Mr. Subramaniam.
Gentleman's recognized.
I thank the ranking member. Mr. Speaker, the American people have lost trust in this institution, and banning stock trading in Congress and in the administration is actually one way to fix that. In 2025, members of Congress and their families executed over 13,000 trades, and President Trump's own family trading has helped add billions to their net worth. And that's why we should be debating a real stock trading ban, like the Restore Trust in Government Act, one that would ban members of Congress, the administration, and their families from owning, buying, or selling individual stocks. But instead, House Republicans only allow us to vote on a toothless, watered-down stock trading bill. And to make sure that this fake stock trading ban doesn't move in the Senate, they throw in the Save America Act, which would disenfranchise millions of Americans. And so I ask, why are we afraid to put a comprehensive stock trading ban on the floor and apply it to the president too? So let's vote on a real stock trading ban and vote no on this fake ban with voter suppression. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from New York reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, I inquire how much time is remaining.
Gentleman has 15 and a half minutes remaining.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Kim.
Gentlewoman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Over 80% of Americans believe members of Congress shouldn't be trading stocks and benefiting off of insider information. Yet, while Americans have made their position clear, some members of Congress and their families made more than 13,000 stock trades worth more than $600 million last year. Americans deserve to know they have honest representation that puts their interests first in Washington, not career politicians looking to get rich. That's why I'm proud to rise in strong support of the Stop Insider Trading Act to restore trust in Congress and bring accountability the American people are asking for. Congress is not a VIP club for lifelong insiders to enrich themselves. We're here to serve the American people, and the American people have given us a clear mandate. This is not partisan. It's not controversial. Stopping insider trading should be the easiest decision we make this week. Let's get this done.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to a leader in this fight, and my dear friend, the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner. 2 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you to the ranking member for his leadership and partnership. Mr. Speaker, House Republicans are pushing a voter suppression bill that would severely restrict the mail ballots that seniors, rural Americans, and so many others rely on, and would throw our elections into chaos late in the cycle while people are already casting their ballots. They're doing this at the behest of Donald Trump, who continues to obsess over his 2020 election loss and promote election conspiracy theories. And they're trying to trick us into supporting their voter suppression bill by calling it the Stop Insider Trading Act and including watered-down language that would still allow members of Congress to own stocks and to trade stocks with only some new restrictions. Make no mistake, this is a trap. This bill is to make it harder for eligible Americans to vote, and the Republican leadership is trying to trick us into supporting it by calling it a congressional stock trading ban, even though it doesn't actually fully ban congressional stock trading. This bill also does nothing to stop the biggest stock trader in Washington, President Trump, who has made millions of dollars trading stocks for the companies that he regulates. Tech companies, healthcare companies, defense companies, and more. The American people are sick of corruption. The American people are sick of politicians getting rich off of inside information while working people struggle. The American people want a real stock trading ban for politicians in Washington. Last year, I worked with reformers on both sides of the aisle, including Mr. Roy, whose partnership I very much appreciated. Republicans and Democrats, we wrote a strong bill that will actually ban congressional stock trading with no loopholes and no gimmicks. That is what the American people want. For this reason, and at the appropriate time, I will offer a motion to recommit this bill back to committee. If the House rules permitted, I would have offered that motion with an important amendment to this bill. My amendment would replace this Republican voter suppression bill with the Restore Trust in Government Act, our bill to fully ban stock trading in Congress and the Oval Office. 190 members have signed on to support this bill, and it is time to bring it to the floor. I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record of the text this amendment, and I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting it. I yield back.
Without objection, gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York reserved. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, my friend and colleague, Mr. Nunn, to speak on the bill.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized.
Well, thank you, Chairman Stile. I think we now have 200 million good reasons to vote for this bill, because that's exactly how much members of Congress made in trading stock, most of it insider information contributing to their $200 million in take-home. Now, here's the reality. Most members of Congress are not trading stock on the job. Most of them are not day traders. They're in their districts. But the reality is true. 35 members of Congress beat the S&P 500 last year. As my colleague on the other side of the aisle just highlighted, one of the biggest stock trader wins in this is an app called Autopilot that tracks the trades of Nancy Pelosi and her husband. In the last 3 years alone, their stock trades have gone up more than 200%. Nobody believes that this is just Washington being smarter than Wall Street. Everyone recognizes that somebody here is getting ahead while the rest of America is falling behind. So let's talk about real solutions to hold this accountable. We want to end insider trading happening in Washington. And it starts by legislation that we're leading today. One of the first bills that I led on the floor was to make sure that we could stop this level of stock trading. When I came to Congress, I had very little stock to begin with 20 years serving in the military, but I sold it all because I think it's important that members of Congress prioritize oversight, prioritize their constituents, not get rich while serving. And for the first time, we now have a bill before us that bans congressional stock trading, and it's reached the House floor. A lot of hard work on both sides of the aisle. But to my colleagues back in Iowa, watch this vote. Watch who talks about ending stock trading and who delivers on ending stock trading. Watch who's committed, beyond the rhetoric, to holding Washington accountable. Together, we're working to clean up Congress. We're working to secure our elections. These are two easy votes on the floor today. I urge my colleagues to vote yes. And Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentleman from Iowa yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
I inquire how much time I have remaining.
12 and a half minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman, my colleague and friend from New York, Mr. Lawler.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 7008, the Stop Insider Trading Act, to end stock trading by members of Congress, because trust in our democracy cannot be a luxury item. It must be the everyday expectation of every American. For too long, the public has watched the headlines that read like a civics lesson gone wrong. Elected officials buying and selling stocks in industries they regulate, profiting from information the public will never see. That is not merely unseemly, it is corrosive. It eats away at confidence in this institution, and confidence once lost is not easily rebuilt. Banning congressional stock trading is a simple proposition. If you serve the public, you serve only the public. You don't get to play the market with one hand while writing the rules with the other. You don't get to benefit from the power the people have loaned you. This reform is about fairness. For the teacher saving for retirement, the nurse investing in her future, the small business owner trying to build something that lasts. They play by the rules. They deserve a Congress that does the same. Mr. Speaker, this is our chance to say clearly, public service is a public trust. Let us honor it. The fact is, this bill bans stock trading, and yes, it requires photo ID, something 80% of Americans agree with. And after we just saw what came out yesterday by one of our former colleagues, the governor of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, announcing that 6,600 non-U.S. citizens were added to the voter rolls in New Jersey, and nearly 400 of them voted in the election, voter ID ensures the sanctity of our elections and ensures confidence by the American people in our elections. And so it is imperative that we pass this legislation, and the American people should watch how every single member votes on this bill.
Mr. Speaker, I reserve and I am prepared to close.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from New York.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm prepared as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll close by saying this. The bill before us is a crude combination of two completely unrelated bills, the so-called Stop Insider Trading Act and the Voter ID Act. The Voter ID Act is, of course, already a crude reformulation of the Save America Act. I've addressed both parts of the bill individually. Neither of them deserves passage. Frankly, neither of them deserves much serious debate. The first, the so-called Stop Insider Trading Act, is not a stock trading ban. Despite what everyone has said today, it simply is not. You can get the bill, download it, read it. It doesn't require people to sell stock that they own. The bill is a vote to allow members of Congress to continue to own and trade individual stocks. I don't know how to be clearer than that. The bill would let members of Congress keep every single share of stock they own. The bill would allow members to liquidate their holdings at any time, obviously when it's profitable for them. There's no divestiture required in this bill, and the bill does nothing to rein in the unprecedented, absurd, and deeply offensive corruption currently taking place in the White House. The bill is silent on the president, and I would note again that so far this year, the president has traded more securities than the entire Congress combined, all 535 members of the House and Senate. And does anyone believe for a minute that the president has less influence on the markets than individual members of Congress? So, judge that for yourself. Then there's the second, fully distinct part of this bill, voter suppression provisions taken right from the Save America Act. House Democrats support voter identification. We have included responsible ID provisions in the Freedom to Vote Act, and we've offered amendments at committee making this point crystal clear. Before us, this bill, however, would create a more restrictive regime than any currently in use in this country. More restrictive than Florida, more restrictive than Texas. The bill would eviscerate mail voting as we know it, forcing voters to include photocopies of their ID every time they mail a ballot. This measure is so extreme, the Republican governor of Ohio, Governor DeWine, vetoed a similar statewide measure because it would burden voters without preventing fraud. And this bill would throw our elections into chaos, the effective date being October 20th of 2026, 90 days from today, right in the middle of this midterm election. In 90 days, tens of millions of Americans will have already cast their ballots by person and by mail. This bill would upend the November midterms, and that is exactly the point. That is exactly the goal. I urge my colleagues to oppose this rehash again of the president's top legislative priority, the SAVE Act. I urge its defeat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back my time.
The gentleman from New York yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As we close out today, I want to begin by thanking leadership for giving us this opportunity. We have not had a bill on the House floor on this topic with this opportunity before. I want to thank Speaker Johnson, Leader Scalise, Whip Emmer, but I also want to thank the members of this body who have doggedly worked on this issue, in particular Congressman Chip Roy, as well as Brian Fitzpatrick, Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, and others for their feedback and work throughout the process to get to this point. Before us is the Stop Insider Trading Act. I want to touch on a handful of things that came up today about what is in and what is not in the bill, because I think this is important for the American people to know. Some of the arguments made today are what I call the Goldilocks argument. The bill doesn't do enough, the bill does too much. Let's take this moment to take a real and substantive step forward. I'll begin, as I close, by discussing what is in the bill. The bill ensures that members and lawmakers cannot use their positions to profit off of insider information. Insider trading, Mr. Speaker, is already illegal, and individuals who engage in it should be held accountable by the full force of the law. However, as we know, prosecuting insider trading is actually quite difficult. That's why this bill is so important, to provide a bright line rule to remove even the appearance of impropriety that someone has leveraged their position for financial gain. Under this bill, members, their spouses, and their dependent children are prevented from purchasing individual companies' shares of stock, period, full stop. The question then becomes, what if a member arrives in Congress with stock in their portfolio? Say they're saving up for their retirement or their children's college education. We provide an opportunity with 7 days advance notice to be able to make that sale. That 7 days advance notice tells the American people what is going on in advance, rather than current law, which allows a 30-day filing after the fact. This prevents members from being able to profit off of any insider information they may gain in this institution. The violations and penalties associated with this bill, Mr. Speaker, are steep. A fine equal to $2,000 or 10% of the transaction, as well as a disgorgement of profits. Violators would be forfeiting any gain realized if they fail to comply with this legislation. Legislation is critical in restoring trust in this institution. One of the challenges we face is that this institution 15 years ago passed the Stock Act, publicly disclosing any trade a member of this institution makes. However, the disclosure details the disclosure rules lack detail and are filed a month after the transaction. When you couple that with the increased attention to member trades, in particular through social media accounts, it has fueled public frustration. I believe this is our opportunity where we can simply stop members of Congress from trading individual stocks, period, full stop. Doing so removes even the appearance of wrongdoing. Americans should be confident that individuals working here are working on their behalf, not on behalf of their own financial interests. This bill is coupled with the Voter ID Act. In jurisdictions across this country, states that neighbor mine, like Illinois or Minnesota, or as far away as California or New York, voters can go to the polls on Election Day and cast a ballot without providing proof of their identity. Our Voter ID Act implements common sense election integrity measures by requiring voters to show photo ID when casting a ballot in federal elections. 24 states already require some form of photo ID to vote. The bill simply takes this standard and makes it nationwide. Both of these provisions are common sense reforms, but in particular, the Stop Insider Trading Act is a moment that we can make a tremendous step forward in the ethics here in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and in this institution. At a period of time when Americans are struggling to gain confidence in Congress, this legislation before us gives us that opportunity to begin restoring the trust. I encourage all of my colleagues in this body today to vote in favor of the legislation before us. And Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 1438, the previous question is ordered on the bill as amended. The question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to amend Chapter 131 of Title V to require certain restrictions on stocks for members of Congress and their spouses and dependents, and for other purposes.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Magaziner of Rhode Island moves to recommit the bill H.R. 7008 to the Committee on House Administration.
Pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 19, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A
is request for the recorded vote of amendment number 28 printed in Part A of House Report 119-755 by the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Self, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the yeas prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 28, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-755, offered by Mr. Self of Texas.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 221, nays 210. The amendment is adopted. The unfinished business is a request for a recorded vote on amendment number 30, printed in Part A of House Report 199-119-755 by the gentleman from California, Mr. Iser, on which further proceedings were postponed, on which the ayes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 30, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-755, offered by Mr. Issa of California.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 2-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 207, nays 224. The amendment is not adopted. The unfinished business is a request for a recorded vote on amendment number 44, printed in Part A of House Report 119755 by the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Harrigan, on which further proceedings were postponed, and on which the ayes prevail by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 44, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-755, offered by Mr. Harrigan of North Carolina.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 2-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 232, nays 199. The amendment is adopted. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the amendment number 316, printed in Part A of House Report 119755 by the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 316, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-755, offered by Mr. Grothman of Wisconsin.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of a request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 2-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 175, nays 254. The amendment is not adopted. There being no further amendment pursuant to the rule, the committee rises.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union has had under consideration H.R. 8800, and pursuant to House Resolution 1438, I report the bill as amended by that resolution back to the House with sundry further amendments adopted in the Committee of the Whole.
The chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has under consideration the bill H.R. 8800, and pursuant to House Resolution 1438, reports the bill as amended by the resolution back to the House with sundry further amendments adopted in the Committee of the Whole. Under the rule, the previous question is ordered. Is a separate vote demanded on any further amendment reported from the Committee of the Whole? If not, the chair will put them in gross. The question is on the adoption of the amendments. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
The bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2027 for military activities of the Department of Defense, for military construction, and for defense activities of the Department of Energy, to prescribe military personnel strengths for such fiscal year and for other purposes.
All right. For what purposes, gentlemen from New York, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Motion to recommit H.R. 8800. Mr. Ryan of New York moves to recommit the bill H.R. 8800 to the Committee on Armed Services.
Pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 19, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number have been risen. The yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 5-minute vote on the motion to recommit will be followed by 5-minute votes on passage of the bill if ordered, the motion to recommit on H.R. 7008, passage of H.R. 7008 if ordered, and adoption of the House Concurrent Resolution 113. This is a 5-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 213, nays 216. The motion is not adopted. The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Without objection, a motion. The gentleman from Washington is recognized. The yeas and nays have been requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 212. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the motion to recommit on H.R. 7008 offered by the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will redesignate the motion.
Motion to recommit H.R. 7008, offered by Mr. Magaziner of Rhode Island.
The question is on agreeing to the motion to recommit. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. vote, the yeas are 211, nays 218. The motion is not adopted. The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed, and without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.